Do you know something I feel like is lost with airsoft now? And I've kind of seen
Intelligence. Oh, sorry.
Bullying.
I've seen, well, that's part of it. And that's also part of it. Not enough bullying, not enough intelligence, probably because of the lack of bullying. But I feel like back in the day, like when I first started playing airsoft at Zulu's old location, I feel like before a game started, the team would gather around and be like, all right, guys, what's the plan? Like, we're playing Army, right? We're like, what's the plan?
Yeah, but now you're cringe if you do that. Because
Right.
we've created a society where if you're serious about something, you're cringe. If you're too goofy about something, you're also cringe.
Yeah, don't be serious about. I'm talking about mission planning.
I know,
right? And
it's
having
great.
like a BS op board and making a terrain model. I actually think that stuff's really cool. And
Fantastic.
I think that if you do it in a sense where you don't think you're a Navy SEAL while you do it, you're just thinking like, hey, this is a game, and this is a game where we can capture objectives and win, even though there's no winners in airsoft, right? Airsoft is the friends you make along the way, but
That's true.
It's the that we leave behind.
it's the we leave behind.
So prime example of
I'd
this
like
is,
to see more mission planning. I feel
Sure.
like it died down.
What about a
I think you're
leadership?
right, actually.
Because the game will start and people just go off into their random directions, and then when their team starts getting swamped, they're just like, "We're getting." I watch morale die. They're just like, "I'm just gonna get off now and eat
Yeah,
lunch in the
but-
parking lot, or like just stop
But
playing."
that
today."
requires somebody step up and take charge.
Right.
Sure,
And then
maybe that's
anybody trying to like be leadership or take charge or be commander during
Yeah, but what kind of credentials do they
during
have?
airsoft game, it's like.
During airsoft.
But here's at old Zulu, I remember I was like 15 and I was just like, hey guys, this is the plan. And everybody just listened to me because they were just in the spirit of the game. They're like, yeah, we'll follow this kid. And I remember like we took an objective and it was all me coordinating where we go and how we move and us being quiet and hand signals. And it was not official hand signals. I just made it up. But like it was a really fun
That was,
core airsoft memory. And
that
I
was
was
your peak airsoft moment.
yeah, and
Well, it
it's
could
not
also
like
be-
I'm leadership and I'm commander. I was just a 15-year-old kid that was like, guys, come on.
Yeah, but you stepped up.
It was enthusiasm.
It could also be rose-colored glasses as well.
Maybe.
Do you know what I mean when I say that?
No, we took the objective. We took the
It could be
UN
that.
objective.
But like, okay, so side tangent, that's similar.
Yeah.
Probably 2 months ago.
Yeah.
We were playing a game. It was Conquest. I remember you were playing because you had even radioed and you're like, where's the other team? And I was reffing and I'm just like, they're in their spawn.
Yeah.
And I walked over to their spawn, literally grabbed everyone there and I was like, hey, I have no reason to do this, but I'm going to teach you guys how to run tactics real quick so you can take the embassy. And it was just as simple as explaining, there's a dude with a minigun. You're going to be a base of fire. You're just going to shoot. And he's like, okay, should I start shooting? No. Don't shoot until you need to. But all these dudes are now going to start running up to that building and they're going to start clearing that building. And if they start getting shot at, you have a fucking minigun. And he's like, roger that. And that's what they did. And when they got there, they all stopped and they're like, okay, cool, but ref, what do we do from here? And I was like, cool, now let's talk about moving from a building through open terrain. And I explained that to him. And I was like, hey, now you're going to push up this hill. Everybody get online, go over this ridge. And if you see a dude, shoot the dude. And look, they pushed through. But it took one guy coming over and being like, here's what you need to do.
Sure.
And it's airsofters because we've created a society where if you're too serious, you're cringe. And if you're too goofy about it, you're also cringe. There's no middle ground. It's just airsofters having their own main character. There needs to be some way for people to understand, oh, we should listen to that guy.
Well, or just being effective, right? And there's also communication that involves in that is part of that. So being that 15-year-old kid, the way that you communicate your plan it has a lot to do with like how people receive it, right? People text and do all this shit so they don't really know how to communicate with people. Or they think that leadership is yelling. And so
If
whoever
you're yelling, you've lost.
Yeah, whoever is the loudest is the rightest. That was the joke in the Marine Corps. And only when we were talking about bad leaders. Anyway, but you know, the delivery of like, you can just be like, hey guys, you want to try this? You know, it's as simple as that. Hey guys, you want to try? And people love working together. Actually, I was listening to the Storm Riders podcast, right? So the Storm Riders are a team based out of Newfoundland, Canada. The airsoft scene, like a big day for them is like 30 or 40 dudes, right? And they all came together and they bought tickets to go to Guardian Center in Georgia. And they did a bunch of podcasts about it. You should go listen to it. It's actually pretty good. And they were talking about, because this is kind of their first time at an event like that. And they were talking about being excited about hearing the radio chatter. That's awesome, right? Like those are the little things that I think a lot of us lose over the repetitions, right? You know, you just stop listening to the radio. It's also not as cool to hear somebody say like,
People don't carry radios as much anymore.
No,
I see less players
I'll
come
be honest with
as
you.
a group and run comms together.
I'll be honest with you. Inter squad comms are kind of not needed.
Right.
Your squad leaders should have comms with your commander.
Yeah, agreed.
And then everything else is hand and arm signals or voice, right?
Yep.
Because that keeps the team together. As soon as you have radios, you feel like you can get further apart, which reduces your effectiveness because this is airsoft and these guns only shoot, 300 feet for like the best fucking gun. Yep. And you really need that concentration of firepower in airsoft specifically to be effective. And I think radios give people a false sense to be able to like go further out. And you can still do those things because everybody's gonna be like, oh yeah, but then you can't set up a base of fire and flank. You can do that.
Yeah.
With hand and arm signals and all that shit, you can really do it. But
I think
it was just very refreshing to hear somebody be excited again about the minutia of a quote unquote milsim game, just by hearing the radio chatter, like, oh, first squad, I need this and that and this and that. And that's kind of what you're tapping into is you miss the planning. You miss the mill of the sim.
Right.
Right.
I was attending summer training with West Point cadets, and I was in the exercise as an unarmed civilian hired asset. We were like operating drones for them. And as the groups of cadets were rotating in every day a new group would come in and they'd do two iterations of this exercise. They'd take turns attacking and defending this objective. And we were just there. We went to whichever team we went to, and we had this tech. And we would talk to the platoon leaders, which were cadets. Some of them were being graded, some of them weren't. Some of them were about to graduate, some of them weren't. And how they chose to use the drones was up to them. So we got to see a lot of different approaches, but the biggest part about us being a part of those teams for this exercise was they had comms that they were issued and they didn't work a lot of the time. And then we brought our Baofangs and little Motorola radios. So we're issuing out like little hand radios to the platoon leaders, and just having that communication with the PL for them to communicate with this drone asset really shaped how things unfolded. As they made their mission plan, but then the moment firefight started to happen, they were able to make real changes in real time and adapt. And both teams were doing that. And it made it really fun. I was there without a gun and I was having fun, just like making call outs on the radio, watching how things unfolded and seeing just squad movement within a larger platoon to get this objective done. And it's something I feel like there was a sense of that in airsoft back in the day, where like we attempted to do that, and kind of seeing it happen with like some cadets that were kind of trained on it and taught how to do it, and now they're practicing it for a grade. It made me like kind of fall in love with it a little bit, where I'd like to see that happen again. I think it'd be cool. Like airsoft content, instructional content gets very focused on like, look at this cool gun and the cool mods, or look at this cool camo and the cool gear. But there's not a lot of tactics-based stuff. And if it is, it's just like regurgitated CQB tactics that GBRS shows, like how to clear a room in CQB for airsoft. But like, what if there was like, and they could be shorts, like 30-second videos, just like, this is how you...
Contact front.
This is how you... Yeah, exactly.
This is a staggered column.
Right. This is a staggered column. What do you do when you take contact? Or like, how can communication be disseminated down in a bigger team so that you can actually have large group movement planning and execution of stuff. Now, some people will take it too seriously and it can be cringe. But if you step back and just realize that it's still not serious, it's no more serious than you buying a real Cry AVS to play airsoft. If you're going to buy a real Cry AVS to play airsoft and have all the real lights on your gun and a real EOTech, you're already very serious for this game. And that's fine, and we've kind of accepted that. But like, I think we should feel the same way about like tactics, because it's a social thing. It's like the social thing that's not being exploited enough for fun, like for the fun of just, it's a group activity.
Well, and you can tell immediately, right? When a group of guys or a team, when they come together for like regular open play for like full field conquest, and you get, I mean, how do you be effective in airsoft? Get 12 guys all facing in the same direction. I mean, really, that's it, right? And then you see them. There was I hate to tell airsoft stories, but there was like a day where like Eric and all those guys were here, and then a lot of our guys were here, and we were on the same team, and we like joined up and did laps around this field because we just worked together, right? And we were only like 20 dudes, right? And there was probably 150 people here that day. So percentage-wise, we didn't represent a large percentage of our team, or even people on the field, but because we were all willing to work together, even though we were two different groups, we were willing to work together, even if we didn't have the same SOPs or whatever the hell. The fact that we were all facing the same direction and shooting was like overwhelming for anybody in front of us.
Yeah,
and I think it's the willingness to work.
Flying Vs,
man, and
Flying Vs,
and I think like a lot of airsoft teams, right? They're usually like their numbers are somewhere in the realm of 12 people, you know, and I feel like there's a little bit of elitism that happens, and it happens with us too. Like a little bit of elitism that happens, like, oh, you're not part of the team, like, you know, yeah, you go do that and we'll go do this, and then they just like completely fuck off and whatever. But in actuality, like the way that you need to think about airsoft at any event is that your team is a team of Green Berets, right? And what's a Green Beret's job? Green Beret's job is to go behind the enemy lines and establish a militia force and lead them in, right? So maybe that's the mentality you have to take, is that like your team, your 12 guys that all have the same radios and all wear multicam air or whatever the fuck, are embedded with this militia force. So everybody else is militia force. So you use them, and by using them, you become a more formidable force because now all of a sudden you're all working together. Right, and that's the mentality, as opposed to being like we're SEAL Team 6 and fuck anybody that isn't.
Yeah,
you have to think about it like you're a Green Beret squad, which I don't even know if they do that, but and you're working with indigenous forces or militia or whatever the fuck, or sister partner forces or whatever, and that's how you are maneuvering through the field. And we just don't.
Yeah,
we just don't.
And I also feel like when I first started playing airsoft, I'd look to the more experienced players, which was really anybody with the play carrier at the time. And I would kind of follow their lead, and if they told me to do something, I'd do it. And to me, that was fun because it sure as hell beat running off alone and just getting schwacked in the face, you know. And there's less of that because, like, a lot of times when new players come in, I notice a lot of the new players that try out airsoft these days that end up sticking around, they come with the small group and they continue to play with that small group.
Yeah. And
so socially, they're kind of satiated. Like they have their group, they have their friends. They don't have to kind of venture out just to feel like, hey, I'm hanging out with people right now, because they have that. Versus back in the day, I mean, convincing friends to go play airsoft before, for me, was kind of hard. I mean, I was fairly young, and it was kind of hard to get other 15-year-olds at the time, the same age as me at that time, to be like, hey, you want to run around in the woods and play with these expensive airsoft guns that you probably don't own right now?
Yeah.
You know, so I got really into it, and then I'd go there alone and I would just meet up with people and make friends that way. And I think because there's less of that, there's less like, hey, let's get this group and just have them inject into what we're doing. Oftentimes when you do that, they just end up wandering off and doing their own thing anyway. And also, the elitism, like you mentioned, is also there. I've witnessed some players like not want to let new players roll with them as they do stuff.
Sure.
Because, you know, when an inexperienced kid is like walking too loudly in the woods, or they're talking really loud, they're just like, shh, and they get like really mad. They get mad intense, like, shh, you're going to ruin it, you know? But like, let them do it. You know, if I'm playing with some friends and I see some like newer players that want to roll with us, I'm just like, hell yeah, come in. I'm just like, no, remember, like, we don't want to like snap twigs when we walk, right? Because like they'll give us away. Like I'm not like upset if they do it. It's a game, you know. And
well, sure. And then
they're having fun. I'm having fun.
There's like a mentoring aspect as well, right? So even if you think you're SEAL Team 6 or whatever, fucking you're going through the woods and you got some rentals coming up behind you, you know, talking because they're having a good time. This is cool for them. This is like something they don't do every day. And they're excited and, oh my God, where do you think the bad guys are? Whatever the fuck. It's a very simple fix. And I've done it before and it works every time. You go up to them like, hey guys, I know you're having a great time, but let's try to keep it quiet, right? Because we're trying to move forward. We're trying to spot them before they spot us. But if they hear us before they see us, they know which direction we're coming from. Yeah. You know what I mean? Just a little bit of mentoring, just a very little bit of mentoring goes a long way.
And you can sell it by being like, hey, guys, like, this is your first time playing? They're like, yeah. Like,
cool. Come with us.
Like, you want to get a lot of kills?
Yeah.
Come, like, follow me.
Come with us. We're going to go die on African
I'll
village.
show you the way. Although I do see, to counter what I was saying, there is a particular group of new players that I will see other players mentor and teach. And it is the younger, newer crowd. And I saw hilarious Reddit thread talking about it. And this guy was like, oh yeah, when I play, I like to just send a whole bunch of kids out. When I find a new group of kids, I tell them like, go over there. And they're just like, yeah. And they run in and do it. And they're so short when they're running that like, the cover that the enemy is behind, like they don't even see the kid running up, and you see these kids put work in, and they're just like, yeah, I call them child soldiers,
soldiers.
So you see child soldiers get used a lot because they have the enthusiasm usually to listen to you, even if they come in as a group. But like other adults coming in, you're dealing with different personalities, and some people are really chill, some people aren't. Some people, when they're playing for the first time, like they're just so trying to get their mask to not fog or make their belt not super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I would love to see more of those tactics being played, and I would love to make videos where we're just like, this is staggered column, or we're just like, this is squad communication.
I feel like that's been beaten to death, though.
CQB stuff. CQB stuff's been beaten to death.
I feel like it hasn't been done in the high dopamine short form content format in the context specifically of airsoft here at Zulu. And I think showing certain routes or showing certain objectives like, hey, this is how we take Connex, and then we demonstrate like a flying V, like
I don't want to give away secrets though.
I think we should. I think we should.
That's like the KFC special spices.
Part of what becomes not fun.
It's a recipe for Coca-Cola right there.
Part of what becomes not fun.
Coke.
It's Coke. Yeah.
It's Coke.
Yeah.
Part of the fun for me playing here gets killed when I know the field like the back of my hand and I'm going up against people that don't. Like,
sure.
Why not? People follow the Zulu Instagram. People subscribe to the Zulu YouTube. Like, that's the player base that comes here and plays.
Sure.
Why not show them all the little secrets? It's just going to cause us to have to
get better.
But now you're going against people that are like,
but I want to be a big fish in a little pond, gosh darn it.
Hey,
I want my Navy SEAL moment.
I want my Navy SEAL moment.
Then earn it.
No, that's fine. And you're right. You're right. It's always been the goal to kind of create a better player base, and that's part of it, right? We've done a very good job in terms of creating a better player base, in terms of like people yelling out, call your hits, like etiquette. We've done very good with etiquette.
Yeah.
But in terms of like tactics and shit like that, we should do that.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
I think it should take place of making skits again. I'd love